She walks with fire, unshaken, unchained, lifting the fallen, breaking the pain. Every battle, every scar, a story of strength that shines like a star. She walks with fire, unshaken, unchained, lifting the fallen, breaking the pain. Every battle, every scar, a story of strength that shines like a star. She's the dreamer, she's the leader, she's the spark, the world's believer. No more silence, no more fear, her voice will echo loud and clear. Rise like the sun, brighter than gold, unstoppable hearts, fierce and bold. Lift up your voices, light up the way. This is our moment, Happy Women's Day. She builds, she heals, she dares to fight, turning the darkness into light. From the mothers to the queens, she is power, she is dreams. She's the thunder, she's the flame, no more limits, no more shame. She's the fire, she's the rain, breaking the walls, rewriting the game. Rise like the sun, brighter than gold, unstoppable hearts, fierce and bold. Lift up your voices, light up the way. This is our moment, Happy Women's Day. For every girl who's told to wait, take the leap, rewrite your fate. You are the storm, you are the key, you are the future, strong and free. She walks with fire, unshaken, unchained, lifting the fallen, breaking the pain. Every battle, every scar, a story of strength that shines like a star. So watch out and dream on, claim what's yours. No more limits, break down doors. Rise, shine, light up the way. This world is yours. Happy Women's Day.
Okay, so let's talk about celebrating women, right, and everything they've achieved. But we're not just here for those like good vibes. We're going a bit deeper.
Yeah.
We're going behind the scenes of International Women's Day and exploring how the Forbes list of the world's 100 most powerful women measures influence.
Okay.
Think of this as your shortcut to understanding all the nuances of these celebrations, where they come from, what they stand for, and what they tell us about women's impact around the world.
It's a challenge, isn't it, to encapsulate something as like multifaceted as female empowerment, in a single day or a list.
It really is. And we've got some Wikipedia articles to help us unpack this.
Yeah.
They give us some historical context of International Women's Day and how it's evolved and its global reach. Plus, we'll get into how the Forbes list defines power across different fields. By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a better understanding of not just the what, but the why behind these different initiatives.
Okay, let's start with International Women's Day. You might be surprised to know that its origins actually lie in the early 20th century, kind of intertwined with labor movements and socialist parties in Europe and North America.
That is fascinating. What were some of the key factors that led to its creation?
Well, figures like Clara Zetkin were super instrumental. She was really prominent in the socialist movement and a really fierce advocate for women's rights, especially in suffrage.
Right, and those early rallies for suffrage were so important. Was there a specific event that helped to solidify March 8th as the day of celebration?
Yeah, the 1917 Russian Revolution played a pivotal role. It began with women textile workers in Petrograd striking for bread and peace.
Wow.
Essentially, they were demanding an end to World War I, as well as food shortages and even czarist rule.
Wow, talk about a pivotal moment in history.
Yeah, their strike actually escalated into the February Revolution, forcing Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate, and just 7 days later, the provisional government granted women the right to vote.
So International Women's Day is intrinsically tied to this incredible victory for women's rights.
Exactly. It's a reminder that these celebrations are rooted in real struggles and hard-won victories. But as with many things, the holiday evolved. It actually shifted away from its primarily communist roots over time.
How did that happen? What spurred that shift?
Second-wave feminism in the 1960s brought IWD back into the spotlight. They advocated for a wider range of issues like equal pay, reproductive rights, and an end to violence against women.
So it expanded beyond just suffrage.
Precisely. And the UN's involvement in 1977 solidified IWD as a mainstream global holiday. But, that brings us to an interesting development, and that's the increasing corporate involvement and commercialization in the 21st century. How do you think that has affected the day's meaning?
That's a great question. I can see how some might argue that it kind of dilutes the original message, while others might see it as an opportunity to reach a larger audience. It seems like a very complex issue with no easy answers to understand it better. Maybe we should look at how International Women's Day is celebrated around the world.
Absolutely. While March 8th is widely observed, its status actually varies. It's an official holiday in some countries, while in others it's more of a strong cultural observance.
Do any specific traditions stand out to you?
In Italy, there's a charming custom where men give yellow mimosas to women.
That's lovely. Where did that tradition come from?
It was started by Theresa Mattei, a communist politician in 1946. She felt that the traditional French symbols, the violets and lilies of the valley, were too expensive and hard to come by for most Italians, especially in rural areas.
So the mimosa, a bright and cheerful flower that's very accessible to everyone, became this symbol of solidarity and appreciation. What a wonderful story.
Of her.
Are there any celebrations that take a more activist approach?
Definitely, the Aurat March in Pakistan directly confronts social issues. It highlights the ongoing struggle for women's rights and safety in a patriarchal society. It's a powerful reminder that for many women globally, IWB isn't just a celebration. It's a day of protest and a call to action.
That's a really important point. The very varied experiences of women around the world. Speaking of achievements, maybe now is a good time to transition to the Forbes list of the world's 100 most powerful women. How does Forbes even begin to define power when creating this list?
That's a key question. Forbes emphasizes that it's not simply wealth or fame that determines a woman's place on the list, but rather her influence across a range of categories. Things like business, politics, philanthropy, media, to name a few.
So it's a more nuanced approach than just looking at who has the most money or the loudest voice.
Exactly. It's about the impact they have on the world. Take the 2011 International Women's Day 100th anniversary commemorative 20-cent coin from Australia, for example. It features 3 figures symbolizing the multifaceted nature of female power, echoing the list's criteria.
That's such a creative way to commemorate the day. I hadn't heard of that before.
It's a great example of how IWD has inspired a variety of initiatives. Speaking of which, the 2003 benefit concert for Afghan women refugees, produced by Marceline Bertrand and John Trudell in conjunction with the UN Refugee Agency, is another. It highlights how IWD can be used to raise awareness and support for marginalized women around the world.
It sounds like there are so many ways IWD is being celebrated and utilized, but I know that even well-intentioned initiatives can sometimes face criticism. Have there been any controversies surrounding IWD or the Forbes list?
Of course, no deep dive would be complete without acknowledging the controversies. The arrest of the Feminist Five in China for planning an anti-sexual harassment campaign ahead of IWD in 2015 is a stark reminder that even celebrating women's achievements can be seen as a threat in certain parts of the world.
That's incredibly disheartening to hear, but an important reminder of the challenges that still exist.
On a lighter note, there's the infamous Burger King UK tweet in 2021 while aiming to highlight gender disparity in the restaurant industry. It came across as incredibly tone-deaf.
It seems even with the best intentions, messaging can go awry. These controversies really highlight the complex and often conflicting ways IWD is perceived and celebrated.
They do. It's a day marked by both progress and pushback, with ongoing debates about its meaning and effectiveness. But I think those debates are important. They force us to critically examine the complexities of the fight for gender equality. These controversies often spark these important conversations about how to, effectively advocate for change, right? And it's interesting how the UN plays a role in shaping those conversations around International Women's Day. Each year, they select a theme to focus global attention on specific aspects of women's rights.
I've always been curious about how they choose those themes. Do you have any insight into that process?
While the exact process isn't public, it's clear that they're trying to address the pressing issues facing women globally, for instance. 2025's theme is Accelerate Action, with the tagline Advancing and Celebrating Women's Equality Worldwide. A very action-oriented theme urging for some tangible progress.
I can see how focusing on concrete actions might help to avoid the criticism of IWD becoming too commercialized or focused on empty gestures.
Exactly. And if you look back, you can see how the themes have evolved over the years, reflecting the changing priorities within the women's rights movement in 1996. It was celebrating the past, planning for the future, kind of like a broad look at the movement's trajectory. But by 1999, it shifted to world free of violence against women, highlighting a very specific and critical issue.
So the Thieves offer a fascinating snapshot of the most pressing challenges facing women globally at different points in time.
They do, and the UN doesn't just raise awareness, they provide resources and platforms for action through their official IWD website. You can find event listings, educational materials, and even a platform for charitable giving, aptly called IWD Giving.
It's incredible how they've created this central hub for people to engage with IWD on so many levels.
One thing that stands out to me is their encouragement for all IWD events to include fundraising for women-focused charities. It's a smart way to translate the day's message into direct support for organizations working on the ground.
I agree, it moves beyond symbolism and encourages tangible contributions to causes that are aligned with the spirit of the day.
It also reminds us that anyone can participate in IWD and contribute to the movement for gender equality, whether it's attending an event, donating to a charity, or even just sparking a conversation with friends and family.
Exactly. IWD isn't just for women, it's for everyone who believes in a more equitable and just world. But, thinking about how we measure progress and influence brings us back to the Forbes Power List. It's a fascinating concept, but I imagine it also sparks its fair share of debate.
Oh, absolutely. The very concept of power is subjective and open to interpretation, which naturally leads to different perspectives on the list's validity.
What are some of the criticisms you've come across?
Well, some argue that the list focuses too heavily on women who occupy positions of traditional power, like CEOs, politicians, and the like. They worry that this inadvertently reinforces existing power structures rather than challenging them.
That's a very interesting point. It raises the question of whether achieving equality means fitting into the current system or dismantling it altogether.
Yeah, it's a crucial question to consider, and it reminds us that true empowerment goes beyond individual achievements. It requires systemic change and a reimagining of power dynamics as a whole.
So with all these complexities, where do we go from here? Both IWD and the Forbes list offer a glimpse into women's progress and influence, but they also highlight the work that still needs to be done.
I think the key is to move beyond symbolic gestures and engage with the issues in a meaningful way, challenging biases, dismantling harmful stereotypes, and advocating for policies that promote gender equality in all areas of life are all crucial steps.
It's about translating awareness into action, moving from celebration to concrete change.
Exactly, and that's where the true power lies, in collective action, in demanding accountability, and in working together to create a world where every woman has the opportunity to thrive.
That brings up an important question. What does that action look like in practice? What concrete steps can we take to make a difference?
Well, for starters, we can support organizations dedicated to women's empowerment. Educating ourselves on the issues and challenging discriminatory practices whenever we encounter them are also crucial.
And we can't underestimate the power of our voices, speaking up against injustice and amplifying the voices of marginalized women can have a real ripple effect.
Absolutely. Even small actions can contribute to the larger movement for a more just and equitable world. And for anyone looking for resources and information, the official IWD website is a great place to start. It's a treasure trove of information toolkits and opportunities to get involved.
That's a fantastic reminder. Thinking about getting involved makes me realize that powerful women come from all walks of life. It's not just about the high-profile figures we see in the media.
You're absolutely right. What's fascinating is that true power often operates behind the scenes. Think of the countless women working tirelessly in their communities, advocating for change, raising families, and breaking down barriers in their own unique ways.
Yes, their contributions may not make headlines, but they are shaping the world just as powerfully.
Yeah. And their stories remind us that empowerment isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It can manifest in countless ways, from leading a corporation to leading a classroom, from fighting for political change to fighting for the well-being of one's family.
It's about having the agency and resources to define success on your own terms. Recognizing those diverse expressions of power is so important.
It challenges that narrow definition of what it means to be a powerful woman and encourages us to acknowledge the impact women are making in every corner of society.
Which brings us back to the heart of this deep dive, understanding the why behind these celebrations. We've explored the historical roots of IWD, the intricacies of the Forbes Power List, and the diverse ways women are challenging the status quo. But what does this all mean for you, our listener? What can you take away from our conversation today?
I think the most important takeaway is this empowerment is not a passive concept. It's a call to action. It's about recognizing your own power and using it to make a difference, whether in your own life, your community, or on a global scale.
I love that. That's such a powerful message. Empowerment as a call to action. It reminds me of something we touched on earlier about how corporate involvement in International Women's Day has kind of sparked this debate. Do you think there's a way to reconcile that desire for widespread awareness with the need for authentic and meaningful change?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and I think it gets to the heart of what we're trying to unpack here. You're right, there's this tension between wanting to reach a broad audience and ensuring that the message doesn't get diluted or co-opted for commercial purposes.
It's almost like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have this potential to reach millions of people, introduce them to ideas about gender equality they might not have considered before.
Right.
But on the other hand, there's the risk of the message becoming too simplified or losing its revolutionary roots.
Exactly. It's a constant balancing act. And I think part of navigating that balance is being like critical consumers of information. When you see a company promoting International Women's Day, ask yourself, what are their actions backing up their words? Are they promoting women within their own organization? Are they advocating for policies that support women and families?
So it's about looking beyond the surface level messaging and really evaluating the substance behind it. Do you think this critical lens applies to how we view the Forbes power list as well?
Absolutely. Remember, the list is a snapshot of women in positions of power, but it doesn't necessarily tell the full story of female empowerment. It's important to remember that there are countless women making a difference in less visible ways, in their communities, in their families, and in their everyday lives.
That makes me think about all the women throughout history whose stories have been overlooked or minimized.
Right.
The activists, the artists, the mothers, the educators,
Yeah.
they've all contributed to shaping the world we live in, but their contributions often go unrecognized.
That's why it's so important to seek out those stories, to amplify the voices of women who have been marginalized or silenced. By understanding their struggles and their triumphs, we gain this much richer and more nuanced understanding of what it means to be a powerful woman.
And that understanding can inspire us to take action, to create change in our own spheres of influence. It all comes back to that idea of empowerment as a call to action. We're not just celebrating women's achievements, we're actively working towards a more equitable and just world.
Exactly. And that work takes many forms. It could be supporting organizations that are working for gender equality, mentoring young girls, challenging sexist language and behavior, or advocating for policies that promote women's rights.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to leave our listeners with a sense of hope and possibility. Yes, there are immense challenges, but there's also this incredible power in collective action and in each of us using our voices to create change.
I couldn't agree more. And I think if we can hold on to that sense of possibility, if we can learn from the women who came before us and support the women who are fighting for change today, then the future for women is incredibly bright.
Beautifully said, and for anyone looking for a starting point, remember, the official International Women's Day website has a wealth of information, resources, and opportunities to connect with the movement. So go out there, be inspired, and take action, because together we can create a world where every woman is celebrated, empowered, and valued for her unique contributions.
That's a wonderful thought to end on. Happy International Women's Day to all our listeners.